Morning. Welcome to today's expert session. I'm really excited about today. We've got some great guests, and today we're going to be discussing everything around the changing buyers' behaviour, parent behaviour when they're interacting with schools. I'm Steve Spriggs. I'm Managing Director of School Management Plus. To set the scene, parent behaviour and consumer behaviour across all sectors and industries have changed dramatically over the past 2 years since the beginning of the global pandemic. Within education, the way parents interact with schools is something that will never change again. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Ian Hunt. Ian is Chairman of the Board of Haileybury International Schools. Ian, quick introduction from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve, and thanks for inviting me on to the panel today. I'm CEO and Chair of Haileybury Schools in Kazakhstan, and that includes our two schools that we've got, one in Astana, or Nur-Sultan, as it's now known, in the north of Kazakhstan, and Almaty in the south. Both British schools, both under the Haileybury name, from the UK, and both following British curriculum.
Thanks very much, Ian. And my co-host, Emily Richards from Stickman Consultancy.
Good morning, Steve. Yes, I'm Emily Richards, as Steve says, founder of the Stickman Consultancy. We provide school marketing services to schools UK and internationally, and we work with some awesome schools, one of which is here today. John Knight recently was on our marketing and admissions course, and it was an absolute delight having him on that. So John, over to you if you'd like to just introduce yourself and what you do.
Yes, and thank you both for having us. So I'm head of secondary at BSB, which is the British School of Brussels. I've been here since 2006, so I know the school well. And we're a through school, so we're from 1 to 18-year-olds, around 1,300 students, and we do IB, A-level, BTEC, so we're pretty well-rounded as a school and very international as a school, 30% British, and then the rest from about 70 nationalities, so pretty international, but also following a fairly British model.
Perfect. So, format of the session, we're going to just discuss this topic, Q&A format. So Steve and I'll be leading the questions, but we're all going to have a panel discussion around that. So Steve, would you like to kick off with the first question?
Yes, thanks, Emily. So our first discussion point, and perhaps Emily could take this one on to give your thoughts. Have you noticed any changes in how parents are researching schools in a post-pandemic world, to start off with?
Yeah, absolutely. Huge changes. And I think that, the biggest and perhaps the most obvious is the massive shift to digital. Parents just want information at their fingertips now. They want it instantly. Expectations have increased, and that's been forced by this, inability to be able to visit schools, to see them in person as they would have done pre-COVID. And I think that's just a kind of digital move, in general consumer buying behaviour, which has forced businesses and organisations to change. So if you look at two of the biggest purchases that people make, houses and cars, for example, cars are opening virtual dealerships. You've got estate agents offering rich digital experiences to sell houses, and schools are no different. They've had to do a similar sort of thing. So they're now having to, or they've had to, and they'll continue to deliver online experiences and give that insight into their school digitally through things like open events, virtual tours. And there's that whole kind of, because of that, they've had to become much more sophisticated in terms of the content and the experiences that they're offering. And I think that's led to, parents looking at a greater number of schools from the ease of behind a digital device, laptop, phone, so instead of kind of shortlisting a couple of schools to go and visit in person previously, I think they're now able to, view schools from afar, and therefore competition is really stiff.
Do you think the treatment that parents have been given outside of education, so when they're buying other products and services, is much more engaging and personal, and that's spilled over into what they expect from their school experience as well?
Yeah, I would definitely say that education are kind of on the back foot, or have been. I don't know now, but I think they've been forced to have this acceleration into this digital space, and I think a lot of commercial brands were doing that previously, and some doing it very well. And schools have had to do a massive catch up around that, and fair play. They've done so much in such a short space of time. It's been incredible to see, and that's not going to go away now. That's that's here to stay in terms of how parents choose schools, and how schools give an insight into what they can offer to a family. How about you, John? What have you seen in terms of the change that's happened?
Definitely the digital change I see completely, and we've had to, it's now an expectation that you have that sort of Google Street View 360 tour of the school, and all the videos showcasing what we do. That's used to be the added value. Now it's just what you expect. The biggest difference I think we've seen is the sheer volume of questions a parent might have, rather than it being quite a quick, come for a visit. And it's much more of a journey now, where the parents will have lots of ongoing questions and ongoing dialogue. And the common thing we see, because of our quite international parent makeup, is one of the early questions is always, how many Korean families do you have? Could you connect us to one or two of them? So that seems to be very normal now, that they want to hear firsthand from a family that's like them, that they can relate to have their questions answered from their personal experience, rather than just the questions with the admissions team. So that's probably our biggest difference.
Amazing. So that's kind of that real harnessing that digital word of mouth now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we know that, word of mouth is such a powerful marketing channel for any school. So for you to notice that parents are now more actively seeking that out and wanting that connection made with other parents is really positive, actually, because it's really going to help them make their decision, isn't it?
I would. Is it the same for you, Ian, or is it different for your parent body?
No, I think it's 100% the same. I like the word that you used there, Emily, but it's more sophisticated. You can't just rely on a website, because the website was a supporting document, if you like, to the personal experience that you used to be able to give with them coming onto site. Mm-hmm. Because it's now moved towards a more digital view of the schools, you're in a situation where you've got to somehow personalize that digital experience, and it's not enough just to send them a PDF document, or to send them a file which might have information in it. It's about making sure that individual who may have come for a tour now is, and especially in international schools when they're coming from other countries, actually feel as though you are personally talking to them. And that goes back to what I think Steve said earlier about the other experiences in their lives, about how the digital world is engaging with the individual. And we've got to do that as an educational organization. And the number of times that we actually require our headmasters to make a personalized video to a potential client who's coming in, and they've signed up, maybe they've not, but there's a 30-second look, we're looking forward to maybe seeing you, or if you can't get here, we're very happy to show you what the class is going to look like, what the class teacher is going to look like, and making it very personalized. Because if we don't have that, then we've taken out what previously was the core of the experience, which was you're going to look after their kids. And now in a digital way, we've got to replace that with something equally good.
Agreed. I think that's so interesting hearing that, and it's definitely what we've seen. And I know from working with John in the last few months, that's something that you've been very keen on, haven't you, John? So the next question, in terms of what parents are looking for in an independent education, have you noticed any differences in parent requirements and needs? So perhaps what are they most preoccupied with nowadays since the pandemic? Perhaps Steve, you'd like to kick us off with that one.
Yeah, so from our work with William Clarence Education, which is a parent advice and recruitment business, we work with families all around the world. Some of the frustrations over the past 2 years, I guess, that a lot of effort and work has been done by schools to pivot for a digital area. That has generally been put down more traditional methods, so boosting website presence and social presence, that type of thing. And families are still craving a little more. They're very corporate now, some of the school websites. I would say that the families are looking for a much more wraparound solution. So the academics and academic rigor and provision are almost taken as a given to some extent, that they're great institutions. But what they're really looking for are the softer pieces of maybe well-being support, the trips, the extracurricular, the life experience that sometimes doesn't necessarily come through on a personal basis on their website. But really, there's no one size fits all. I always say that every family that we work with is different yet the same. They all want the absolute best quality of their schools, but they've all got slightly different preferences. So it's a really interesting time for international relocation. I think over the next 2 years, we'll see a real influx of that, and schools need to be on their game actually to make sure that they're attracting and competing correctly for the right student for them. It's not necessarily about every single student, it's the right student for them, so to get really targeted and niche. My next question, actually, I think hopefully Ian might be able to help with this one. Would you say there's any specific differences that affect international schools and parents when they're looking for an independent education?
I think there was a point that John made earlier, which is a good one, about the mix of different nationalities and the ability of each of the different cohorts to perhaps speak English, because that's one of the core elements of the role of the schools, especially when the curriculum is being delivered in English. But actually, I think the pandemic has re-centered most people's views on life, and parents are no different when they're looking for the best environment for their child. And academic, you're absolutely right. Everybody still wants to get to the top universities, and one of our great USPs is to be able to say that we send a lot of our children to the Ivy League and to Oxford and Cambridge. But actually, now there's a subplot, and that subplot's really important, and that's happiness and well-being, and making sure that the mental side of the experience is as positive as it can be, because they all appreciate the fact that if the child's happy, then they're going to learn, and they're going to learn best.
Shall I chip in on that as well? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think both points are exactly what I've seen as actually a change the last year. So 2 years ago, all the questions were around COVID. So an incoming family wanted to know, are you in school or not? Are you online or not? Just so they could compare their country's experience and work out what it would be like, and what our plan B was if wave 2, wave 3, they wanted to be prepared for that. And that's changed. And now it is all about the extra. Will they be doing clubs? Will they be doing trips? People want to feel that life is returning to normal or better than normal. So those things have become really important, more so than 3-4 years ago. It seems that in the parents' mind. I think internationally, the difference perhaps that UK schools, independent schools, might not have. There's a lot of questions that I would get, which seem to be around flexibility. So parents aren't quite sure when they're going to start, because when will their COVID situation end, and when will their visas be granted, and when will they be allowed to leave, when will they be allowed to start? So can they stay in their current school and join in November, and can we match courses? What happens if they have to leave after a year rather than 2 years, and which course should they do, which is most so that's where we've got IB and A level. which one is going to better match. So they're thinking 2 steps ahead, and how we'll fit in with that. So I'd say that's a sort of international difference, is that need for flexibility. The language difference. So a lot of students, I'm sure in both our schools, don't have English as their first language. So how much and how prepared are the school to support and bring the students up to the language skills? And recently, it's not just been COVID, it's also Brexit, and that's been a big question mark for how most of our families are European, and saw the UK as a sort of natural step for university, and are now having to rethink that and rethink, well, which course will I do, and where will I go to with it, and will it is the US more appealing, is the Netherlands more appealing? So families are thinking in all sorts of ways, several steps ahead. I never sensed that 3 years ago. The academics seem to be the thing. Can we get good grades and the rest will take care of itself? Now it's the wider picture, the fuller package, and where might we be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years time, and are all eventualities covered? So you've really got to show that you've got the full support of the child's well-being and their future is in safe hands. So it does feel like it's changed.
Because that's quite a lot of pressure, that, John.
It is, I think, for the students. I don't know, Ian, you see.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think there's one thing that international families seem to be a little bit more resilient in terms of where their children are going to study. They're willing to move them, and obviously everybody, parents, teachers, children, everybody got fed up and sick and tired of online learning. And it's really interesting. We had half a dozen inquiries this morning from Moscow because the schools are closing in Moscow. They're going online, and parents are immediately looking for an offline opportunity for their children, because they know it goes back to the well-being element of it, goes back to the breadth of the offering, that if the children are in school, they're going to get a better deal, and those international parents are willing to travel to get that.
To come back from that, we've had the same, where not necessarily Moscow because of Brussels distance, but where families will be, and actually we did have Russian families where we're going to be in lockdown for the next few months, but your school's open, and we know it from the past. Can we come back and join you for 6 months, and then when things ease up, we'll go back again? Or actually, mum or dad is now working online much more. We don't have to be in city X anymore. We quite like your school. Dad will work remotely, or mum will work remotely, and we'll move to you. And parents will travel, and we'll kind of pick the school more than the location. So it's much more thinking about what the situation will be, and is there a better life that they could be in the short term.
So interesting, and that point about flexibility and resilience and those that in-person need, that social mobility and those basic human needs of people needing people in that kind of social environment is incredible. So I guess my next question is, are there any positives to have come out of the pandemic which we can learn from to enable us to support parents better in their decision making when choosing a school? Ian, would you like to kick us off with that one?
I think there's so many things that have come out of the pandemic, and not necessarily all positive, but not all negative either. I think a lot of the things that we've found, like online parent meetings, one-to-one parent meetings, and then also group meetings, where we've had our counsellors have given sessions to parents to support them. And then there's been online sessions for year groups, so in years 2 and year 3 on parenting and on out of school activities. So some really good opportunities there that the digital world, which so many people weren't experts in before and have become experts, have really helped the parents. In terms of making decisions on which school to go to. I really think that the schools that have got their act together in terms of looking after the enquiries and the parents individually give the indication that if we're giving you that type of and that level of care and attention at this point, then we believe that you're going to look after our children when they come to the school. And it's not something to underestimate, because parents buy with their hearts, if you like, and a lot with their eyes in terms of facilities, but also with their hearts. Can I, are the school population, are they going to look after my child? And the more time you spend in that process of application, the more likely that they're going to look at you and say, you know what, I trust you. I'm going to give you my child to look after.
I was just going to add into that. Do you think there's a certain element of the scale of information available at the moment over the past 2 years that people are researching you before you even realise that they're interested in you? So it just puts a bigger slant on. It's an opportunity really to broaden out your digital footprint, I guess, to make sure that they're seeing the best version of you before you get to speak to them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it never ceases to surprise me of how poor the digital footprint is of so many schools who just think that a two-dimensional website is good enough to sell. And they probably got a really, really good school, but you can't see that. All you can see is this flat vision of what the school could be like. And they need to understand that parents are much more savvy these days, in the same way they are with, as you said at the beginning, in terms of the rest of their lives. The digital world is a three-dimensional environment, and we've got to ensure that we offer that in terms of giving them an understanding of what we can do for their children.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I love that phrase you used, Ian. Parents buy with their hearts, and that whole, building the know, like, trust factor. You can do that digitally, but in person as well. And for us, it's that real mix of the two coming together effectively, and managing that as a school. Proactively have processes around it, have protocols around it. It's not just guesswork, and it's not, as you say, having this poor or thin digital footprint. We have to really stand out these days. It's a cluttered, competitive environment. And so if you're not standing out, if parents are checking you out digitally, you're only ever a click away from losing that family's interest. So the risk is greater, I think. And, from what we've all agreed about parent expectations and rising and needs changing, having that strong digital presence mixed with that, focus on customer service and really building those relationships with those prospective families is so important. And then it just becomes an easy decision for them, and the school feels right for that family. And it's, and it does. People buy with their hearts. I love that phrase. I've written it down, Ian.
Good.
Can I throw in another little add-on to that? Because the digital confidence of staff is come on so much, and of parents, and lots that we used to do face-to-face, and it works really, because we like to see people, we like to make the connections. And now we've gone online, but we might keep doing things online because busy parents who we kept bringing for information sessions all through the day and evening, and they're busy with work. Actually, they can connect so much more easily, or even watch things afterwards that were recorded as live. And what we found now is we're able, all that content we're creating for our current families is actually quite useful for prospective families. So the admissions team, their work was really smart to say, any sort of loose inquiry at all, do you want to be on our newsletter chain? So then when we do these webinars, or when it's the parent podcast about your teenage children and well-being, and the parents talking it through, they can be linked into that podcast. They can be linked into that options webinar that has just happened for the year 9 students. Well, your prospective year 9 families can be sent the same thing. So you don't have to recreate anything, but you can make those families feel that they're part of the school, and we're interested in them, and we want to keep them involved. And that's the same for families who say they're going to join, because it can be decide in September you're going to join the following year, and then you go, great, tick, they're on our numbers, and see you in a year's time. But instead now they're part of the they're involved with the school through all these great digital resources. They can stay connected to the school through the year and get to feel part of it. And actually, we can even, because we'll have buddies for students when they arrive, we can connect those buddies in advance as well. So families connecting to families, often by language and national group, but then the students can connect as well. So they can actually know people before they even come here, and feel like they've made their connections and they feel part of the school. And that connection grows from first inquiry all the way through to hopefully then coming with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, John. As you say, feeling part of that community, but also that time-saving element. If you are, create once, purpose everywhere is the COPE model, which is something we stand by at Stickman. It's so many marketers we see creating things all the time, new videos, new content, new social posts, and it's exhausting and it's hard work. And whereas if you think, okay, so we've got this asset, this digital asset, whether it's a social media post, whether it's an article, whether it's a webinar, as you say, John, how can we get that as far as possible, and how can we spread it across our school community to benefit as wide a circle as possible? So I love that, John. Really lovely thought there.
Yeah, I like that bit actually, John, because what you're kind of alluding to there is the parent journey and engagement from initial decision all the way through, and they're still making their decision through that. It's no good just making the first decision and then leaving them to it. Leads really nicely actually on to our final question. I really wanted to ask Emily this from your work with schools. Emily, what would be your key bits of advice to support schools in them supporting their parent buying decision throughout that process in a really growing competitive market?
Yeah, so good question. I think the first thing is knowing your market, being really clear on who's right for your school, who you're trying to reach with your marketing. Avoid this whole trying to be all things to all men, because your message is just going to fall flat. It won't resonate with anybody. It's just going to be so diluted and weak, so vanilla. So avoid that. Be really clear on who they are. Understand them inside and out. What are their needs? What are their wants? Have that and build your identity. Your school brand and your messages around that. What's going to resonate with them and what will speak to them personally. Obviously matched with what your core offering is as a school. And then where do they hang out? Where can you reach these people? Online, offline, or a mix of the two? So ensure that your efforts in terms of where you're marketing, which marketing activities you're doing, are really specific again, because again you can kind of spend a lot of time and energy in areas that won't necessarily reach your audience effectively. So know your market, who they are, what they want, and where they are, how you can reach them. So another differentiator is customer service, and this goes back to I think what Ian was saying earlier about using that as a real differentiator, and not enough schools are doing that, and doing it well. And it's simple things. Put yourselves in the shoes of your prospective families. Knowing your market, what are their needs and wants? What do they want to be hearing about? What information do they want? Just to really sort of nurture them through the whole process. So I think knowing your market and customer service, those are the two things that I would advise schools to consider in supporting parents' decision-making process.
Thanks, Emily. Just to add into that point, I don't know whether John or Ian feel this with their schools, but we always go by the kind of motto of personal over perfect. I think it's a really nice way of engaging parents, that they understand that nothing's perfect, but what they really want to do is what life is like for them at that school. And it kind of links into that parent journey, John, that you're talking about there from initial decision.
Yeah, I've written that down, personal over perfect. I think that sums it up really, really nicely. I think what my view on this question would be that there's there's almost two levels to it, because just like the Haileybury schools, we're a top international school, so we need to show that. So there'll be some taken for granted that you're going to have great facilities, you're going to be a green campus. Basically, the what makes great education, well, it's going to be great teaching. So you've got great teachers, happy students. It's going to be that well-being. It's going to be the clubs, the character development. So actually, all schools will say I'm different, but the things I'll describe will normally actually be very similar, because it's what makes great education. So you can quite quickly sum up a few key messages that actually parents will be expecting. And then the question is how you differentiate yourself. So yes, you need to show those things, but what is special about your school? And I'm always reminded of Jim Collins, good to great, and the hedgehog concept. So what is that thing that your school does better than anyone, or is sort of special about in our, because I've been here a long time, and we're a non-uniform school, we're a first name school, which is actually very unusual for international schools around the world. So to us, it's relationships. So let's make sure we connect people, because it's about so that's why we will try to make sure families are connected and can form relationships. We'll get straight onto a call with people. So when you know that's your hedgehog, you'll be brave about it. And I think that's where you were saying, Emily, if you try to be all things to all men, actually you're it's not really, it's almost a bit false. Yeah. And we've had that where families, it's actually quite right not to choose us if we're not the right school for them. And some more conservative families, because we are fairly liberal as a school, so we need to be quite upfront with families that so they don't come in and feel disappointed or feel they want to change us when they get here. We're British, we're not the American School of Brussels. Actually, we attract a lot of American families who like the Britishness, but we don't try to change to suit them. We know this is who we are, and they like us for it. So I think that's, for me, is to say, well, make sure you know what your hedgehog is, and stick to it, and be brave about it, and tell people about what it is. So that would be my thoughts on that one.
Absolutely. Ian, any thoughts?
I absolutely agree. And it's been really interesting listening to those sort of summary thoughts by all three of you, because one of the elements that we talk about when the children are in school is always over communicate with the parents, because then they know if there's an issue, they know about it, and you can actually solve the problem right at the very beginning of the journey. So when we talk to the admissions team, we talk in the same frame. Over communicate. Just because you've signed them up doesn't mean that that's the end of their journey until they turn up at school. And we do very similar things to you, John, in terms of engaging them and giving them access to various elements of podcasts and support networks, because they're part of the family from the moment that they decide they're going to come. And it's far better that when they do then arrive, that they feel that warmth and they feel part of it. And like any relationship, and it's all about building relationships. Like any relationship, if you build up those credits over time with positive experiences, then heaven forbid if at any point a negative experience happens, you've got credit in the bank, and people are very much more willing to listen to rational reasoning. And as a result of that, the whole customer journey, customer experience is a positive one rather than a fractious one, which it could have been if everybody keeps themselves closed.
Absolutely. And gosh, I'm nodding frantically during this discussion, because I just love these points being shared. It's so wonderful to hear. And I absolutely, again, agree, Ian, in terms of that you've got some buffer then to fall back on should something happen, because, everyone's human, aren't they? And these things do happen. So building that positivity amongst your parent body, not only will it give you that buffer, but it will also generate that positive word of mouth, for you. As we said earlier, that's such a strong marketing asset. And as John, highlighted, that more and more parents are wanting to hear and be connected with current parents and hear about the school directly and ask those current parents questions. So important on so many levels, and it's brilliant to hear that.
Goes back to what you were saying earlier, Emily, and for us, the whole process of that positivity and that positive experience that those parents will have even applies to those parents whose children can't get into the school, because it's a word of mouth, and word of mouth is so important. And so if you've given a good experience to the ones who don't even get in, then when they're talking to their friends and the whole communal links there, you start to understand that they talk very, very positively about the school, because and they say, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Great. That's it from our side. It's been a fantastic discussion. Really enjoyed all of them. I think from my side, the key takeaway is really to treat the individual as an individual throughout the whole life cycle of their engagement with you. It possibly is more relevant for international schools actually than in independence, but you're almost always selling. You're always selling the best version of your school. People can make decisions and move. They can move areas. New people are coming to the area. So it's about complacency. Don't let yourself get into that, and always stay as sharp as possible with your messaging. Really, really interesting points.
Every day's an open day, they say, don't they?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, it's been a real joy, and thank you to Steve as well for organising this and suggesting this and co-hosting this. And it's always great to do stuff with Steve. So, but thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, Ian. I think you seem both very like-minded in terms of what you do at your schools and your approach to those parental engagements. So, thank you from Stickman personally.
Yes, and thank you both for joining us. Really insightful. Thank you both.
You're very welcome.
Thanks very much.
Talk with you all.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.